Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the least optimized playthrough of Borderlands 2 that you have ever laid your eyes upon. It will be sweet, sweet pain and agony. Actually, it's not all that bad. We are here in Oasis, so if you're just joining us, we've been going through the main game. We've got the 4 Headhunter packs done. I can't remember where we left off. We haven't gotten to the bunker, or even, I think, close to that. We haven't even got to the Iridium Blight in the main game. So we're not even at what I would consider to be the third act. We're not quite there yet. We're about halfway to 3/4 of the way through the second act, if I recall correctly. And we are doing this because this is what I usually do when I get kind of bored with the main game, because I've played it so many times. We'll jump into one of the expansions, and this is my second favorite one, next to Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep. And we've made some pretty good progress here. We last episode, I believe, was Herbert the Hermit. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we did we got all the letters. I can't remember where we're at, to be honest. I don't remember if Herbert is still part of our mission, or if we've gotten past him and now we're doing something else. But I do know, excuse me, we are going to be beating this. It probably is not going to be beaten today. We're not going to finish the DLC today. We're going to get very close, but it will not be until our next episode, which will be episode 18, that we actually complete the DLC and get back to the main story. Doing a little navigating. We don't stop to ask for directions, but we do stop to look at our map. Because we're a good carnivorous bandit mercenary man with currently a skull face. It's for intimidation purposes only. I don't remember. We do change it at some point. I think we put on a ball cap. Right now we're just messing around. We are the harbinger of death. And hell's coming with us. Well, slightly behind. Maybe about an hour or so. But it's coming, damn it. I mean, really, with all that engine noise, it sounds like we should be like cruising at quite a good speed. But we're not moving all that fast. Certainly better than if we were on foot. But these skiffs are not the fastest. Well, that's right. Sorry. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm doing this a little bit later. Not super late. It's only 6:30. It's just one of those kind of tired where you slept a little too much, maybe spent a little too much time in bed, and so now your body's just kind of like on permanent drowsy mode for the day. It's not so bad to do on a Saturday or a Sunday. It's really crappy to do that on a weekday though. So we're lucky we're not pushing our luck with tiredness. One thing I do love, the bee, because we're not taking damage, I'm pretty sure the bee is permanent when it comes to vehicles. Like, even if our health is not maxed out, I think that's how that works. Like, even if the vehicle's health isn't maxed out, I think we can continue to use the benefit because we ourselves, as a person in the vehicle, are not taking damage. So yeah, we're going to the refinery now. I'm trying to remember where. I think, if I'm not mistaken, our last episode, we realized, well, we busted the compass. I think that's what happened. We went to Herbert, we got all the tapes. He's like, oh yeah, just shoot the lock. We shot the lock, and somehow that managed to destroy the compass inside of the chest, even though it did no damage to the chest. Again, very, very immersion breaking. And so now we're having to go get, we're here at the Washburn refinery to get some more piece, like another piece or a replacement or something. Corsair is very feisty. He's very aggressive, trying to get all up on us. Well, there's no curb here, doofus. Kind of hard to curb stomp when there's no curb. Why I'm shooting from the hip? Don't ask yourself silly questions. As I said, least optimized playthrough. That includes trying to get hip shots with a friggin' sniper rifle. Well, luckily, the sniper rifle is the volcano, and it is more than enough to help carry us through. We're just in a dumb place right now. We're just running around right in the middle, getting shot from all sides. Just because I like to hear the music. The music doesn't play if you kick their butts right off the jump, so we have to kind of milk it a little bit. Go for the gravitas and the dramatic flair. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Kablooey! Very satisfying. The powder monkeys are very annoying. See what I mean? I was serenading you as the audience with music, high intensity music of a powerful gunfight. But we survived. Not a problem. Yeah, there's I think 2 or 3 side quests in here that you can do that I don't do. Oh, gracious me. I honestly haven't been yawning like that all day. I've been drowsy all day, but I haven't been yawning like that. And trust me, I'm not bored. This is very exciting and engaging, but for some reason I am feeling tired. Actually, you know, it's been about 3 weeks now, and I feel like perpetual congestion. It's very low key. It's not like I can't breathe or, you know, like you feel like you're stuffed up, but it's just kind of like a general congestion mixed with fatigue. So I may have gotten something going around. I know 2 or 3 people in the house have had strep throat or something similar to that in the past couple of weeks, so I may not be 100% is what I'm saying. So pity me, and don't judge me for my yawns and my tiredness. I'm sure it has to do with an ailment that I have no control over. Aside from the whole, like, staying in bed for like 6 hours this morning. Oh, seriously. But I was always of the opinion, or of the belief, that if you're able to fall asleep, especially like in the middle of the day, it probably meant that you needed it. You know, your body's taking the rest where you can get it. Because if you're not tired, you can lay down and chill all you want, but you're not going to fall asleep. But unfortunately, I don't think that's true. It's because I think we fell asleep, but it didn't do us any favors. I hate that gun. I'm not a big fan of the guns with the big spinning wheel on them. Long time to reload. Not a great rate of fire. Looks kind of silly. Doing a little resource management. Getting our bank account nice and healthy so that we can buy stuff if the need should arise. I said it before, that was much more of a thing, I believe, in Borderlands 1. I remember more times where I was coming across class mods, and sometimes never a legendary, but oftentimes an epic weapon of some kind in the vending machine, and I almost never had enough for it. It was always 200,000 or something, so I got in the habit of I keep wanting to say hiding money, but not hiding money, but scrounging money and pulling it together. It's a habit. It's a habit is my point. Habit left over from the days of yore. And it's never a bad thing. It just does take a little bit of time. It adds.
But I'll need some samples of polycritin. And once you get those, I can rebuild the key and give it to Scarlet, and it'll help her find all the treasures buried, and she'll marry me, and we'll have 100 babies, and I'll never die. It'll be perfect.
Yeah, I think that tracks, Herbert. I do like when they go into the absurd with the characters, though. You know, we'll get married, I'll have 100 babies, and never die. So yeah, just go ahead and lean into it. And this is why I kept the I think it's called the teapot. No, the teapot is from the main game. I don't remember what this one's called, but We kept it just for this because I remembered lots and lots of robots. And I don't think we've got a better corrosive weapon. And combined with the shield, this should really, not the shield, the bee, well, the bee shield should be pretty effective. But ideally, we would have. I'm pretty sure this thing is like 2 or 3 levels under what we want it to be. And as you can see, our shield is nowhere near being charged, so we're not getting any of that sweet, sweet amp damage. I heard it. You can hear it winding up. You hear it doing it. Just like that. That's the noise it makes. Don't quote me. Well, we got 2 amp shots off. See, these gunfights feel good. We're not demolishing them, but it is taking several shots to have them do a little back and forth exchange. Try to keep our shields going, or get our shields recharged. There we go. Sweet corrosive damage. Like, come on, Bee Shield. Come on, please. Please go back online. But it doesn't matter. Corrosion will corrode. And we might be overstated. I didn't actually look at the level on that loader, but considering how fast it went down just to a SMG, probably we may be a level or 2 higher than we need to be for this particular point in the game.
Yes, just a few more bits of polycriton. I've studied the lost treasure of the sands for months now. I'll rebuild the compass for her.
For her. I wonder what it is about Scarlet. Is it her red hair? Is it her giant hook for a hand? Is it her what looks to be a pogo peg leg? It's like a peg leg, but it's got shocks or springs or something on it. Is it the piercings? The gentle slope of a slightly longer nose? Who knows, really? I mean, we know he said she's got a nice butt, and her face is cute too, or something. So he's more about the body, but she is missing half of her limbs. So it's interesting. He's not a shallow guy, this Herbert. He sees something in her beyond just the physical. I think it's a love that's going to last for the ages. Why, if I didn't know any better, I would say, hey. There you go. See that softball or hardball, fastball? That look at how fast. Remember how long the other one took us to get down? That's two fastball grenades and then a fully amped corrosive SMG took it down in about 5 seconds. Don't get up. Don't get up. We got some hits in. Well, that was close. I just assumed our regenerative powers would get us where we needed to be, and they did, but just barely. That fire was... The flame, the burn was getting us down pretty low. I mentioned this on the Mario RPG playthrough, but I thought it was worth noting here. I like to spread the news when I can. I just watched Andor at the behest of some friends. Not the same friends who recommended the first season or 2 of Mandalorian, but friends of similar acumen. Friends that I consider to have a pretty good taste, or at least have a taste that I have overlap with. And they said it's a great show, underestimated. And I did find a lot of it to be very enjoyable. I think there were maybe about 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes of material that I thought didn't need to be in there at all. It didn't lend anything. I think it's there because it's Disney and it's modern day. So things you can do without. But to its credit, it's almost like, okay, we put it in there because you made us put it in there, but we weren't going to do anything with it. It has no bearing on the story. It's pretty much a token thing. Same thing. I don't know if this is a fact, but I can't remember the gentleman's name now, but I think it's Cameron Crowe. Maybe not. Anyway, the gentleman who wrote Jerry Maguire, allegedly, or apparently, if so I heard, he didn't have like a sex scene in the movie. And apparently, Hollywood said, hey, we need to have sex sells. We need to put that in here. And so that's his fiancée, don't ever stop screwing me line and section came in. It was very, very short. I thought it actually served pretty well as a way to juxtapose Reese, what's her name? Darcy. That's her name, right? Darcy? Yeah. When she says, boy, whoever snagged him must be one classy babe. And then we see that scene, and she's anything but classy. She's very aggressive and very competitive, and there's really not a lot of love oozing out of that scene. And I think it just was a very accelerated way to convey everything we needed to know about her character in pretty much that scene, and a few lines that came afterward. So it wasn't a complete waste, but it did seem gratuitous. It didn't need to be in there. There are other ways to communicate that. But the amount of times that you do have sex in a movie or TV series where it really doesn't, necessarily it doesn't belong, but it adds really nothing to the story. It adds nothing. It's just, again, it's gratuitous. And so there's that. There's no sex scenes in Andor. No partial nudity. And I think it's very clean in that regard. But there are just some scenes that you're just like, oh yeah, okay, you didn't need to put this in there. You put it in there because we want to have this thing in there. But anyway, aside from that little bit, which is negligible, it really was well done. I think the pacing was off in a few places. Some of the editing, I don't critique people's editing. As an editor, I probably would have made the same decisions if that's the material I had to work with. But there's times where when you've got your main event going on, you've got maybe one or two side events, and you're kind of cutting back between them. You don't want to have to leave your main scene like more than twice. Like you want to kind of feel like you're moving forward with that. And there was, I don't even remember the actual part, but there was, I would say felt like a 5-minute segment where we were doing a lot of cutting back and forth, and it was like, okay, you can, when you cut away, you have the luxury of skipping ahead in time, so you don't necessarily need to, cut back. The only thing I could think is if they said, well, this is what we have, this is the footage we have, it has to last this long, so cut it the best way you can to make use of it and to keep it as engaging as possible. But I think they could have done a little bit if they had maybe 3 minutes of another scene or something. They could have definitely cut out a lot of the back and forth because we weren't seeing anything really that we needed to see. It was like, okay, they're walking down the hall, okay, and they're seeing somebody. We don't need to see that. We can just have them get to the next section where their next confrontation is. And there was a speech that I kind of thought was a bit cheese. It's really hard in movies to, I think, at least at this point for me, to have the William Wallace, I want to say Viggo Mortensen, but the Aragorn speech, the one where it's, bones will be shattered, shields will be mended, or what, the big, or that's Theoden actually, where they had the big rah-rah, the biggest one, I think the biggest offender of it was,
I bet Scarlett's getting lonely. Yep, I'm pretty sure she regrets kicking me out to the rust yard.
Lost my train of thought. Darn you, Herbert.
Nope.
I knew that was coming. I was waiting for that. Nope. Yeah, I genuinely forgot my train of thought on there. That's very strange. Oh, right, the speech. The Independence Day speech. Bill Paxton's... Not Bill Paxton. That's... Oh, man. They're going to kill us, man. That's Bill Paxton. I'm thinking of Bill Pullman. Bill Pullman. As a president in Independence Day. it's the grandstanding, grandiose stuff. And maybe that's just because in real life I've never really had a speech that really seemed like it was, it didn't, it was like, okay, they're giving a speech, listen, but it didn't motivate me. It wasn't like, okay, yes, you're telling me something that before the speech I had a certain mindset, or I had a certain idea or certain thought or certain feeling or fear or whatever, and your speech has assuaged those fears or has changed the status quo or has made an impact in whatever way. It's more like, okay, you wanted to get this off your chest. It's gratuitous. It needs to be said, but it's not really a thing. So when I see it in movies, it's usually kind of and then yeah, because you know, in that moment, you have a meta understanding that this speech is there to be. It is written the best way the writers can conceive of an inspirational speech. So you know the intent. It's not just we're communicating something. We're putting the dialogue out there. It's like, okay, yes, they sat there and were like, this needs to be awesome sounding. It needs to sound badass. And there's two of those in the series that I'm like, and one of them is done by Andy Serkis's character. I can't remember his name now, the character's name, but you know what I'm talking about, the prison guy, the prison, not warden, but the supervisor, once they take over the base. And that was, okay, I don't want to go into spoilers, but that was another part. I was kind of like, where are you guys going? What are you doing? What's the deal with the things? Like, and they I felt like they really left that wide open, which from a writing standpoint, I think I would have tried to close off some of those endings. And maybe they didn't specifically so that they could go, hey, we can flash back to that time, and we can have certain characters survive, certain characters not survive. We can do whatever we want to if we decide we want to go that route. But I don't think Andor's getting a second season. And that was something that had me anxious or a little bit anxious when I was starting the show, because typically, if they don't have a second season, it means one of two things. Either it was left completely wide open, open-ended, and it's, you're kind of like, oh, you're going to watch it and be like, crap, what's going on? Or it's going to resolve most things, but leave some things unresolved. It has to, in other words, it's not, even if it ends with a degree of satisfaction, it's not going to be conclusive, because we know, because if people are asking for a second season, or if there's a possibility you could have a second season, it means that the door was left open enough to allow for there to be a second season reasonably. And either way, I want a self-contained story. I want it to have a beginning, middle, and end, and not to be left feeling like I'm missing out if it doesn't get another show or another season, because I don't think it will. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure that it needs to. After watching it, I'm happy to say it does wrap it up relatively well. As much as you could, if you, as the writer and as the showrunner, are saying, we don't know if this is going to get picked up for a second season or not. If it does get picked up, we need to have characters still alive that we can work with. I think if they knew, and maybe they did know, but I don't think so. I think if they knew that that was going to be the one season, I think they could have, with very little contrivance or very little variation, they could have given a definitive ending. But they gave it a good enough ending. It was, as I said, wrapped up enough that you weren't left hanging. And obviously, the character of Andor, we know what his fate is if you watch Rogue One. You kind of know where his story leads. So you know that he survived. No matter what would happen in Season 2, he is going to survive. He is going to be whole and hearty. He is without injury. Although certainly not without emotional scarring and physical scarring. And you get a better glimpse of that. I appreciate the time period that they chose to set it in. I think, personally, if you can't have the main cast, you can't, if you can't have the actors back, because I wouldn't mind showing events between Empire and Jedi. I wouldn't mind showing events between New Hope and Jedi and Empire, because then it would make it one big contiguous story. Like if you could have, it's already like a 9 hour trilogy, but if you had trilogies that filled in the gaps between those, that'd be awesome. But without doing de-aging and CG abominations, which we call them that now, but I guarantee in 20 years the technology will be at the point where the estates will sign over dead actors' rights to their images and their voices, and it's going to be done well enough that nobody's going to think twice about it. And it's going to be commonplace, I think. Kind of like retro games now. It's going to be retro stars, and it's going to be completely generated movies, shows, narratives using deceased actors. Because and to a point, I don't mind that too much, because remember, the actor, it's a job. You don't say, okay, if in a regular job, you don't say, hey, these 12 guys did this work, and now we can't touch this project again. If we have to go back and revisit it, we gotta fix it. We gotta do whatever. We can bring other people in to do it. And I know it's not a direct comparison, but the idea is an actor is there to represent a character. They're the avatar of the character on screen. The character is who we're seeing. It's not, oh, they brought back this actor from the dead. It's, we found a way to have this character live on, instead of just recasting it and saying, okay, here's somebody who looks really close to Harrison Ford or Mark Hamill or Carrie Fisher. Here's some actors that look very, very close. We can actually just create these characters based on those exact images. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, especially if it's for a property that they were already a part of. And I mean, you could say, okay, they have to, they're of course they passed away, so the only people benefiting it are their relatives. But once you're 2 generations removed from that, it's if you're sometimes your great grandparents, but most of the time it's your grandparents. So, okay, I knew my grandma, when she was, Carrie Fisher. I don't know. She has a daughter. I don't know if she has a granddaughter or not, or grandkids. But you know what I mean? It's like the people that knew them as anything more than just images and the culmination of their work are gone. So who are we? What are we protecting? And honestly, I'll be honest with you. If I were to somehow, I'm not saying this would happen, but let's just say I somehow just became. I don't know why it's taken so hard to say. Let's say I become a famous actor somehow in the waning years of my life, and I play a character in a series for 3 or 4 years. That's and it's beloved and people like it. But then I get too old to continue on. But by that point, because it would be 20 years in the future, they're like, hey, we can continue this character without, by using just some guy who can be CG'd over. He can just be the guy standing in for you, and the character can live on. And we'd love to get you to do some voiceover work, whatever, but we can actually voice sample. We have more than enough sampling from your voice that you did in those 4 movies to do it. So, we'll pay you for your likeness because you appear in the film. And I mean, that's industry standard. But even if they did, I mean, that would be nice. But even if they didn't, it's like, if people love that franchise and there's a way for it to go on beyond me, why would I have a problem with that? Because it's not about me. It's about the character. I just happen to be the incarnation of that character in real life. But if I can't do the job anymore, but there's still more story to tell, as long as it's known, as long as you have, I don't know how you'd call it. You'd want to think of a really cool way to phrase it, a really flattering way to say, like, okay, you would say the role of I don't know, say Jimmy Bodine. I think there actually is a guy named Jimmy Bodine. Anyway, let's just say that's my character name in whatever series. It'd be Jimmy Bodine, or it would say Legacy Jesse Gray as Jimmy Bodine. Like, I think, or Jesse Gray's legacy as. There you go. actor's legacy, actor's name, legacy, and then the character name. I think that would work because it honors the actor and acknowledges the actor as there, but it also makes a distinction to say, okay, the performance you're seeing it should be based, the expressions, the mannerisms, all that stuff should be based on an amalgamation of all the performance elements we have from not only the actual released films and projects, but all the cuts. Like, I mean, if you're trying to create a realistic false version or duplicate of a character, you'd want to have like all the outtakes, all the footage you could get of that actor. So you have all the voice sampling you can get, all the mannerisms, everything, and you put it in there. And then you would have people that would tweak it. So it's making it clear to the audience, hey, this is not my performance. I didn't do this. I didn't make these choices myself. Like the scene where I kind of give a little bit of a cockeyed thing, that's an animator. But I think we can all agree, having watched some of the very good CG animation, I'm not talking about necessarily realistic stuff, but like a lot of Pixar's earlier stuff, the way they're able to communicate with expressions and everything, as long as they don't make it ridiculous, which it wouldn't behoove them to do that, you'd want to make them look as realistic as possible when you have a realistic model to base them on. Like, animators do a really good job. A lot of times they're looking in the mirror, they could be looking at, other footage, or, again, I think the AI can help with that. We call it AI, but just say the computer could help with that. If it has a database to draw from, you could just essentially execute smile, or, do the smile, or do frown. I mean, it would still take some skill. It would still take some creative, artistic work to make it happen. But I think as long as it's not, like, my performance is not my future career, and that's the key thing here. Most of the time you're going to do this is because people are too old to do the role, which means you wouldn't be getting paid. We're not using these things instead of you. We're using them because you're no longer either alive or in the condition to be able to play this character. But we want the series to live on, and as somebody who embodied that character, I would rather have that than to just be like, nope, lock it away, nobody can ever play it again. I mean, to me, that's not, because if you make the distinction that what you're watching here is not actually that actor, it is the legacy, that actor's legacy that is being used, then I don't think it's any different than bringing another actor to play the role. Because it's like, well, as the actor, original actor, you can say, well, that's not the choice I would have made, or I don't think the character would have acted like that. You can still have those discrepancies, but we haven't had a problem with other actors stepping in. So essentially what you're doing with CG, or computer generated, I just told you what CG stands for, computer generated characters. To me, the danger of it is, or the problem with it would be, there's no distinction between that and the actual actor. But as long as that distinction is there, I don't see a problem with it. You're just, instead of it being one other actor, it's probably a lot of artists. I don't know why I said it like that. A lot of artists coming together to bring that character to life. Whereas for you, as a super talented actor that you were able to bring it to life just by yourself. But they are going to need... That's not entirely true. You still have makeup, hair. You have a lot of other artisans. Cut her off in mid-monologue. I feel horrible.
It was so cute. Had this big old face you just wanted to squeeze, and... What?
Cut her off again. Not doing it on purpose. I kind of like the accent, the voice, or whatever, but I got to do what I got to do. I got to get this done. Clearly, I don't know where I'm going. There we go. Found. I'm like, oh crap! How do I get there? Oh,
looking at. Get back to work. Swab something, goddammit!
So angry. Anyway, I don't know how we got off on that tangent, other than the idea that people find it abhorrent, and I don't quite understand why. If it's handled properly, there's obviously a lot of bad ways you could do it that I think could be either insulting or misleading or what have you. But I just don't see it being all that bad of a thing. But yes, going back to my original point, since we can't get those main characters now, the thing is, you can still do from the Empire side because, you know, David Prowse, that's the one good thing about Darth Vader. Well, not the one good thing, but one of the great things about Darth Vader is as long as you've got a guy who's David Prowse's size and rough build, you won't really know whether or not, like, the scene at the end of Rogue One where Vader busts into the Rebel ship, you don't know that's not David Prowse. In fact, it might be. I doubt it. I know he passed away recently, but I think he was alive during Rogue One. But, you know, it's that character's there. Stormtroopers are stormtroopers. You wouldn't be able to have the same Imperial officers, but you could see what the Empire was doing between Star Wars and Empire, or between Empire and Jedi. You just wouldn't really be able to see any of the familiar commanders. It would have to be Vader. Maybe you could get away if you did it like right now. Maybe you could get away because of the prosthetics with Ian McDiarmid. But I think I'm probably pronouncing his name incorrectly. But at this point, he's probably, because, you know, prosthetics are not fun. He might be too old at this point. I don't want to sit there for 4 hours, 5 hours while you make me even older. He might not be down with that. But, and you wouldn't be able to have necessarily like Wedge. I mean, it's a problem. You get too far away as we are now, and you really can't use any of the OG characters. But that's the thing about Andor is because it takes place before we really get to meet any character, because the prequels don't exist as far as I'm concerned. You don't feel like you're missing out on anything. You're like, okay, it's not time. I mean, who wants to see Luke putzing around with his T-13? I mean, that might actually be cool, but it's not going to be all that exciting, especially 5 years before Battle of Yavin. That means what? That's Luke would have been like 11, 12, somewhere around there. No, maybe is he 18? I think it's supposed to be 18 canonically. I think he's supposed to be 18 years old in New Hope. So I don't know. There certainly would be ripe stories you could tell with those characters, but since we don't have that option anymore, I think the time before Yavin was good, because you hear about the tyranny of the Empire, and Luke, when he's like, I don't have any love for the Empire. In fact, I hate it. There's nothing I can do about it right now. We get to see why. We get to see the Empire being the Empire, and just how bad it got, and the lack of justice and the abuse of the people, so that we too could share the Empire. Because otherwise, we're just like, all right, they're bad. White guys wearing white plastic armor or white armor, Durasteel armor, are not or Duraplastic. I don't even remember what it's considered to be made out of at this point. But we know they're bad because we're told they're bad, and they're trying to hurt the people that we are told are good. But you don't really see the abuse. And the officers, yeah, they come across as a little stodgy, but that's military. So we don't actually see, aside from fighting the rebels. Now we do have Darth Vader's torture scene with Leia, but we don't even see that. We see the ball with a little needle on it. Well, little needle is a 12-foot needle. So I'm not saying the Empire looks good per se, but they don't do a lot that makes them look evil in the trilogy, at least at the outset. Yes, blowing up a planet, pretty bad thing. But other than that, they just don't seem all that bad. And prefacing that by saying, or not prefacing that, but qualifying that by saying, it's really hard because when you in our real life, in our real world, we have been, and by we I mean I'd say most people, especially if you're in America, we have been on both sides of something like that. We have been a part of a country that some could view as the Empire, tyrannical in some ways. We have the upper hand. We have the vastly more firepower, like a Vietnam or even Iraq or Afghanistan. That whole battle in the Middle East.
Gimme!
And then he just crushes it, man. Herbert just has.
There. Tighten that.
Like,
Put that down just a hair. Aha!
I mean, that's
Here you
freaking
go.
miraculous.
Last piece of the compass.
Scarlet needs to watch out, because if those hands can do that, yikes. It's like a superhero. What am I waiting for? I'm not sure. Anywho. But yeah, I mean, like in any conflict, or in most conflicts, you have someone who is, many conflicts, you have someone who is the rebellion, who is fighting against the establishment or against the bigger opponent, the David and Goliath. And sometimes you're the Goliath, or the side that you're on, or the country that you're in is in the place of a Goliath in the conflict, or it's in the place of a David
The compass piece? Great.
in the
Now
conflict.
give Herbert that little gift I gave you and come on back.
I'm trying to remember. I think I tried like not giving it to him at one point, but I don't remember what happens if you don't.
From Scarlet? I knew it! I knew she cared!
Sorry about that, Herbert. Oh, I forgot to mention you were carrying a rather large bomb around with you, didn't I? Many apologies. Now just bring back that last compass piece so we can find out where the treasure's buried.
And rip Herbert. Oh, that was strategic right there. That's some speed running. What do we call it? Strats. It was going to take me a lot longer to go all the way back, get to the nearest new travel station, so I just truncated that whole process. At first I was like, wait, what? I know we've got another, 30 minutes before this episode is over. So why am I stopping the game now? But no, that's big brain. But yeah, so it's hard when you're watching conflicts like that because you can see both sides. You go, okay, not every rebellion is good. And not every established authority is good either. And there's probably muddy on both sides. Which side, do you have a hard and fast rule? You should never rebel. I don't think that's the case because you do have tyranny, you do have authoritarianism. And so to say, well, you should never rebel because rebelling is bad. Well, what happens if the established system is unjust? And it is so corrupt and so twisted that there is really no way to, using the channels that ostensibly were set in place to allow for change and allow for course correction, those are no longer available or they no longer function the way they're supposed to, then what is your recourse? And if you say, well, it's just to take it, well, then you live under oppression. Or you end up, in a position where you are the oppressor. And if you don't become the oppressor, then you're not doing your job, and you go back to being the oppressed. And many people would say, "Well, that's fine. I don't mind being the oppressed." I say, though, there is a time and place for rebellion, but you can't overextend. You can't say, "Well, now we're going to, we want to set it up under our rule." The one thing I think that was good about the Republic is, yes, it is a system of government, but you were able to join voluntarily, if I'm not mistaken. And they tried to convince you, tried to make it enticing or appealing. And a lot of the problem was, okay, now you've got all these planets, and all of them are very, very different and don't get along with each other. Many of them don't. Many of the cultures don't. Many of them have beef and a history that is, will not allow them to be copacetic. And so while the Empire just forced it and said, well, screw you, you're part of the Empire now, you leave each other alone, or you do your thing and you do your thing. If you screw with each other, we'll step in. And so there's a degree going, well, that's not the worst thing in the world. If you want to force unity, if you want to force everybody to be under one banner, there we go, we got the Sandhawk. But it is not a great one. No elemental.
Here, this is my piece of the compass. Take it.
Might actually be the worst Sandhawk
Now
ever.
combine it with the other 3 pieces of the compass you've collected on that table over there. There it is. The compass of the sands. Please grab it. And now we've treasure to find. Take the compass to Magnus Lighthouse.
So yeah, it's easy to sympathize with the rebellion until you've lived in a world, a reality, where there are rebels, and you go, well, maybe maybe not so much. I mean, there should never be oppression. There should never be tyranny, period.
It'll show you exactly where the treasure is buried. Of course,
But not all rebellions are justified. Just like there's sometimes, hey, you know, people go on strike. And let's just pretend unions don't exist. Let's just say that the working man and woman at a certain job says, hey, you know what, this is bogus. The treatment that we're experiencing is unfair. We're being forced to work late hours. We don't get overtime. We don't get health care. We don't get all these things. And they're asking more from us and giving us less. So we're going to say, hey, we're not going to do it. And in theory, if they have a case, if their case is just, I'm not saying 100%, but I think a lot of times if the conditions are that bad, if they truly are that bad and it really is that rough, then you're not going to have really a lot of scabs or people stepping in because they'll get in and go, oh, no, these conditions are horrific. Now, there's always going to be people who are worse off who are willing to step in, but if they have they have to have the same amount of qualification. They have to be able to do the job equal, either right off the jump as equal to, or after a week or two of training, be able to do the job that well. And if they have the same living situation, I mean, that's one of the problems you have if you have a segment of the population that is not on the books per se. And so they're not having to pay taxes. They're not paying into taxes. That's 30%, 25 to 30% of your income at minimum that you retain. I mean, there are freelance gigs that I've had where if I wasn't getting taxed at all, that's all I'd need to do. But because of the tax, I actually have to find a second or third gig because I need to make, 30% more than what I need to live because I have to fork some over to the government who isn't doing jack diddly squat for that money. But so and when you're competing for a job, you can underbid, or you could say, hey, I'll do it for, $2 less an hour, $3 less an hour because I only need to make a small percentage because I'm not paying taxes. Then you've got a problem. But in theory, if in a perfect world, if you've got people saying we're striking because these conditions are horrible, somebody else who has the same financial responsibilities and has the same level of skill and other opportunities would get into that job and go, heck no, this is absolutely crap, unless they're really desperate. But in theory, you can't fill every position with very, very desperate people. There aren't enough desperately qualified people who can afford to take that job. Like I said, that's not a hard and fast rule. It just seems to be that should be the way it is. And so if you have people that take the job and stick with it and you can fill the position, then you have to look at the people striking and go, okay, but just how bad is it? If they're able to make a decent living at it, they're not overwhelmed, they don't feel, abused or anything, then maybe you're a little entitled. Maybe your demands are a little ridiculous or excessive because you've got people that are more than happy and they don't find the conditions appalling. Like I said, based on same level of capability, same financial responsibility. So they go, hey, I can pay all my bills with this. Paying taxes and everything else, I'm able to make a good living and do the job, and it doesn't seem unfair to me. I think the wages are fine. I mean, people are always going to be different, but I think that's a general rule, or at least it's something to consider. Because sometimes I think strikes are warranted, or saying we're not going to take it. Like, just essentially, I'm striking, but if the needs aren't met, I'll quit. I'll go somewhere else. And if I'm valuable enough to the company and they can't get a replacement, then maybe my needs will be met, but you don't want to milk. You never want to abuse that. You never want to demand more, because I mean, if you start, it's biting the hand that feeds you, literally. Well, not exactly literally, but for all intents and purposes, literally, you're screwing over the people who are cutting your check. If your demands are unreasonable, if you're just out to get yours, you could put your own company out of business or put them in a financial situation that is horrible because it's like, okay, yeah, we can afford to meet your demands for about 2 years, and then we're bankrupt because we can't justify. We don't have the money to be paying that much money. It's like, well, I'm getting mine. Well, then you're out of a job. And wouldn't it be better? Ooh, that's a scary thing to have running at you, isn't it? Luckily, I have the answer. Anyway, I don't know how I got that far off on it. But just saying, when you watch something like Andor, that's a great thing. It makes you think. Because there's a great, for the two monologues that I think are a little bit cheese and a little bit excessive, there's one monologue that really doesn't feel like a monologue because it's just a guy talking to another guy. So it doesn't feel like he's, grandstanding or anything. It's just very low key. And in fact, somebody sent me or posted in chat, quoted the actual speech. And I remember thinking, okay, that sounds a bit, I was like, well, like I call it like modern Shakespeare. It had kind of a little bit of the poetic vibe to it that you would get in Shakespeare, but contemporary language. And I was like, well, I don't know how that would translate well, or how well that would translate in a casual conversation. But the actor does a fantastic job and pulls it off. It just nails it, and I was quite impressed. So trying to get as many shots as we can with that enhanced sniper rifle before our B shield goes down. There we go. One shot and our shield goes down. That's how much of a glass cannon we are, folks. But that's all right. We're plugging away at that rapscallion and his compadres. But yeah, and that monologue, it makes a very good point. And what you see and what I really like about the show is the rebellion is not, or the seeds of rebellion, the beginning of the rebellion, they're not squeaky clean. They're not. They make choices that are good for there was a line in there. He said, for the greater good, or no, let's call it. He said, let's call it the greater good. He said, no, let's call it war. Or he said, I've got another name for it. It's war. And it didn't sound forced the way they said it. I have to go back and look exactly how it was phrased, but it's pretty much that. One of them he was suggesting, we're doing this. It's a situation where you're having to sacrifice, the needs of the many versus the needs of the few. It's like, okay, we're going to let these guys die. They're part of our cause. They're our friends. I mean, not close friends. We don't know them all that well, but they're fighting for the same thing we are. But we are choosing to allow them to die because it is going to put us in a much better position to win the war in the long term. And of course, unfortunately, they didn't tell those people that. So they pretty much just let them be slaughtered. And you say, that's horrible, that's cruel, then you know better than the bad guys, but it's like, but that's sometimes what it takes to win. If you're saying, hey, we are all fighting, and we're fighting, which means we're willing to die for victory. That our end goal, we're not here to play nice, we're not here to make friends. We are here to achieve a goal, the overthrow of the empire, the overthrow of tyranny. And we're all saying we're willing to fight and die for that. Then you're acknowledging that whether it's we need to throw wave after wave of people to take this one position because it's key to our backup getting in, or whatever the situation is, you can say, well, we're going to lose a lot of good men trying to take this position, but we have to have that position. If that position is not taken, and I think that's even what they do in Rogue One. They realize we have to, in order for this for everything we've done to be worth it, we have to get the plans off world. We have to get them transported out. We don't know what's going to happen after that. It's not a guaranteed win, but everything we've done here is worthless if it doesn't happen. And if you're in a war, if you're in a fight, your engagement with that is the acknowledgement of the understanding that you could die from it, or your life is not forfeit, but it is collateral for victory. It is there to achieve victory, whether it's done because by being a superstar and being an awesome fighter and having great victories and being a symbol of hope for your side, or whether it's being part of what would be considered a suicide mission and going and doing it knowing you're either definitely not coming back or probably not coming back. You know, you go in there just going, okay, we're gonna. But we've seen that again, two sides. In World War II, Japan towards the very end, they were doing kamikaze. Those are suicide runs. They get into. They had torpedoes that were manned torpedoes, where you get in, there is no exit. Like, there's no way to get out of it, really. The hatch is sealed. There is no way to leave. Like, you are there to either crash yourself into a ship and give your life in that way, or you just sink to the bottom, or you get, they shoot you before you get in, and you just die in that little submersible. And same thing with kamikazes. They weren't very effective, as I recall. I think they were initially, but you just have so much. You know, a lot of them got shot down before they could get there. Some of them hit, but their bombs didn't go off. But it's so we've seen that level of fanaticism or commitment. But that was done. There was really no path to victory. That was like, I think that's maybe one of the differences. And a key difference, I would say a key difference is that you're not. The people asking you to do that aren't doing it just because out of pride. They're not doing it out of spite. They're not doing it out of a disregard for life. They're not just like, hey, whatever, we've got, as long as I'm alive, as long as the minds behind it are still alive, we can always recruit more people. As long as the idea is that every life is valued, and you say, but okay, these lives are worth. I mean, you can't make it concrete like this, but you say each life is worth 500 points. Taking this objective is worth 2 million points. So, in terms of the amount of lives it's going to save later on, and in terms of how crucial it is to this next phase of the effort, and how badly we will be set back and possibly completely eliminated if we fail, it's 2 million. And so you say, well, then we really can't lose enough. There is no number realistically of people that we could lose that would not make this worthwhile. As long as the objective is achieved, those lives are worth it. But it can't be a callous disregard, and I think it should be a very heavy heart and a very conscious ridden mind that sends people off to their deaths. It shouldn't be somebody who just goes, okay, yeah, just send them all in, do it, get it done, I don't care, get it done, and then have no remorse. Because I think even though you see it as a necessity, it should grieve you. It should weigh heavily on you that you are saying, even if you don't know those people, like just the fact that their lives are they don't have any less of a desire to live than you do. They don't have any fewer plans for the future. They don't, they are equal to you. They want to live, and they're fighting with your cause. Like, they are willing to lay down their lives. Like, how can you not be grieved by their loss? And so you want a leader, you want people calling the shots who are doing it with heavy heart. It would probably say, I would rather be out there with them than the one back here giving the order. I would just as soon as me out there. But usually if you're in a place of leadership, it's because you've got the connections. Like, you're kind of the glue holding it together. You've got resources, you've got access to resources that other people don't, or you've got the leadership skills, you've got the overall picture, you've got the big picture, the big plan. And so it would be stupid to send you in there because, if you're dead, then the big, all the stuff afterward, even if you take that objective, you're crippled moving forward after that. So as long as it's not a callous disregard and it's not for nothing, you're not just saying, oh, well, you know what, screw it, it's a Hail Mary, let's just give it a shot. Now, to be fair, in the case of Japan and the kamikazes, they voluntarily got in there. I mean, some of them probably were like, oh, hell no, but they were getting pressured. It's like, I think that was even in the Godzilla Zero movie, where it was like he was supposed to suicide himself, but he didn't. And so there was the shame of that, and like the people around him didn't. I'm thinking I'm remembering that correctly. But anyway. But I mean, that's to say that not all sacrifice, not sending people away in a desperate suicide mission, it necessarily is noble or is right. But if it could protect, if it could mean victory, and particularly in Japan's case, I mean, they were part of the Axis. They were part of the aggressors, going for domination. They weren't protecting themselves at the outset. They were aggressive and trying to take over. So it's like, okay, you lose. Well, nobody was coming for your kids. Nobody was coming for your family. Nobody's trying to take over your island or your land. You were doing that to them. So you have even less of a reason to go down fighting, because if you lose, more than likely they're just going to be like, all right, leave us the heck alone. And they could be jerks about it, or they could be, vindictive. But more than likely, it's just going to be all right. Your bid failed.
Hurry to the top of the lighthouse. The Leviathan knows how close we are to finding the treasure, and he sounds rather miffed. Pretty awesome, right?
I guess. I don't know. Myth Leviathan doesn't sound all that awesome there, Scarlet. Oh, Scarlet. You scared me a little bit. Whee, going up. Not at all precarious. Certainly not worried about any of those bullets finding the cables and sending us plummeting to a very, very, very long and terrifying death. Let's see here again, just a different landscape. We got the grass. We got grass going. It's pretty lush up here. Got some palm trees. Nice background there. Nice, beautiful blue. Tropical. Feels very piratey. I like it. A little sand would be nice, maybe, but wouldn't make sense probably for where we're at. Anyway, just talking about the diversity of settings that we find in Borderlands 2, and particularly in this DLC. There's some that are kind of meh, but this one's pretty cool. Andor gets you thinking. And I what I was starting to say is I liked it because part of the reason I liked it is the rebellion wasn't clean. There were decisions made, and the way the characters even interacted, it wasn't like, hey chum, hey buddy, we're fighting together, we're best friends. It's, we have a common goal, but we have a job to do. This is not a time to be buddy-buddy. I'm not trying to be your best friend. It's not about being nice. It's not about, it's not like G.I. Joe. Like G.I. Joe is kind of what you think of as a rebellion. Just a bunch of guys and gals, and they're all just getting together, and it's like, all right, cool, let's do this now. And everybody cares about everybody else. It's not presented in that way, and I think that's realistic. Just because you are opposed to tyranny doesn't make you a nice person.
It looks like the treasure's buried in worm water. I'll meet you out there.
It doesn't mean that. It's a very small, and I know I'm recognizing that now in this time that I'm living in, where I discover that there are a lot of people who have similar big picture views that I do. Like, so we have the barest modicum of common ground, and it's very broad because I would say a lot of people share these certain sentimentality, certain sentiments. Like if you're like, hey, I don't believe in tyranny and authoritarianism. That's most people, I would say, a good chunk of people. So having that as a common ground isn't like, whoa, we're like, you're like my long lost brother. It's nice, but it's not a huge deal. There we go. I saw the X. Do you see it? You see it? Yes, you see it. Yes, you see the X. Geronimo!
Top notch, my friend. And don't worry, I still need your help to get past whatever traps there might be in the treasure chamber.
And that's when I realized I hadn't activated this quest yet. I'm like, come on. Because that's not an easy jump to make. I made it look easy because I got it on the first try. But you can over or under shoot that pretty bad, and then you got to go all the way back up. It's not the end of the world, but it is kind of a pain in the butt. And yeah, I did it, but I forgot to activate the quest. So yeah, didn't quite playing that one out very well. And now I got to figure out how the heck to get back in there. This is not the way to go. Circling back around, long way around. But all that to say, so you can have that very broad and basic fundamental value that you have in common with other people. But then you try to get to the next layer of common ground, and it might not be there. You might be like, well, I also believe that this and this and this are wrong, and we shouldn't be doing this. And they're like, no, I got no problem with those things. I just don't like tyranny. And you're like, oh, okay, well, all right. I mean, we're still on the same side, But once we conquer, once we get rid of tyranny and the oppression, we might be on opposite sides of the issue. And as long as hopefully it doesn't result in or require armed combat or combat of any kind. Hopefully it can be resolved just by you living on your planet, or you're part of the planet and I live on mine, and we just live different lives. But that's what you get with the rebellion. I think they make that. They don't make that clear. I don't feel like they're making a statement. I just think it feels very organic that you have people who, okay, we're on the same side, we want the same thing, or you're an ally in that you're not aligned with my enemies. You don't want my enemies. Our enemy is the same. Neither one of us want them to succeed. However, how much we want each other to succeed and how much we're willing to help each other is still in question. And I think it really hits that home. That the rebels weren't just a bunch of good old boys getting together to take down the bad guys who hated each other. You do see that in the Empire, and I like the fact that there's really not a lot of I mean, there's some moderately likable people on the Empire side in terms of just, they're doing their job. But at least at the outset. And then you're like, oh no, they're complete jerks. In fact, that was one kind of thing I was not a big fan of in the show. I don't think they needed. There's a female ISP. I think it's Imperial something P. What would that be? Surveillance or security? P, whatever P would stand for, if I'm remembering correctly. And at first, I mean, I wasn't rooting for her because she's part of the Empire, but she seemed cool. She was diligent. She was willing to think outside the box. She did have moments of self-doubt and times where she wasn't really sure that what she was doing was the right thing or that it made a lot of sense. But she all she needed was like a little encouragement. She kind of, all right, yeah, no, I should do this. It just felt pretty well rounded, but they made her very sadistic and kind of sick, like
Are you all right?
almost.
Explosions coming from the lighthouse. Is that you exploding? I see Captain Scarlet heading towards some bright light and warm water. I would go very, very fast and beat her to the treasure and possibly shoot her multiple times.
Would you do that now, Shane? Would you really? I don't think you would. I think you want me to do that. But yeah, it almost felt a little bit jarring when you see her doing the interrogations. And you're like, you didn't need to go that sadistic, because here's the thing: she's going to be around. They didn't finish her off. I do apologize. There's some spoiler alerts here if you haven't seen it yet. But she's not one of the ones that gets killed off. So it's not like we want the audience to hate her and we want them to just be like, okay, die already, and then she dies and it's cathartic. They leave her alive, and if you're going to leave her alive, I think you need to make her sufferable. Meaning that you're like, okay, she's on the wrong side, but she's kind of got a point, or she's kind of a cool person. But once you see her going into the interrogation, you're like, oh, she's a sick piece of crap. You want to see her get her comeuppance. And there's another guy as well who, from the minute you meet him, you don't like the guy. And he sticks around. And I feel like they lingered on him a few times, a little bit too much. They were showing him being upset by losing his position, and he just never, anytime he opened his mouth to describe or to justify why he was doing what he was doing, it just sounded stupid. It's like his supervisor had it right. And usually that's not the right, usually it's the other way around. Usually the guy who, it's the superior officer, the superior is the one in the wrong. He's the jerk. He's the one who's, very crass and callous. And this one, he makes a lot of sense. And he says, hey, here's why I'm choosing, here's the course of action, and here's why. Because, and he lists out, I think, 3 good reasons why he's going with this course of action. But the other guy just gets stuck on it. He's like, no, this is not justice. It's like, it kind of is, actually. Like, and he never said that his superior was wrong. And so the idea is that Andor, you know, our good guy, he gets harassed. He does not do anything to warrant it, but he gets harassed by these two officers, and they start abusing him and making it clear that they may extort him, or at the very least they're going to rob him. And he fights them off, and you can tell by his expression he accidentally kills one of them as he's fighting them off. You know, something that Batman or Superman or any other hero would realistically do in the course of fighting bad guys. You have, you know, just the wrong hit, the wrong time, the wrong angle, falls the wrong way. The guy died. And you get the idea based on how the other guy, and unfortunately it was the reasonable one, the one that was just kind of like tagging along that got screwed over, that got killed. And so it was the sleazeball, the one who's kind of instigating everything, who was left alive. And Andor's got a tough choice. Okay, this guy knows who I am, he knows my face, and yes, even though it was an accident, I did kill this guy, but I don't think I'm going to get a fair shake out of this. I don't think this guy, and the guy was trying to make it sound like, oh, no, yeah, it was an accident, blah, blah, and he was lying through his teeth. So Andor kills him, and I don't have a problem with that. What do they say? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You can't aggressively go after somebody for no good reason just because you're a jerk and you're having a power trip, and carry it as far as he did, and then get pissed off when you get, you know, the person fights back and you end up losing your life. You kind of had it coming. And the superior officer kind of had it. He didn't see that happen, but he kind of had it, the situation figured out. He when he is describing it to this younger officer, he's spot on with pretty much how it went down, and his perception of the two men who lost their lives. He was right on. And the younger officer never countered that, never suggested, well, maybe they weren't, or they were friends of mine, or I don't think they would ever behave that way. He never fought it on that point. He just was pissed off that two officers, just because of their position, that they should have been killed. And it's like, well, if they're corrupt, and if they're abusing people, and they're threatening other people's lives, then yes, they deserve it. Absolutely. Was this a bad idea? It was not. It was a brilliant idea. Okay, maybe it's a bad idea. A lot of stalkers. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm trying to activate that quest so that we can get the X marks the spot thing. If I'm not mistaken, that's what I'm doing. But I don't remember. Oh, no, yeah, the X marks the spot. Yeah, so I'm going after. There we go. Look at that. I gave you the breakdown of what was happening about 3 seconds before you got to see exactly what I was doing. Unless you were looking at the map, in which case you knew exactly what I was doing from the beginning. Now I got to go back, but I can't go back up that way because I wasn't going back just to break those. Okay, maybe I was. I think I was going back because I was trying to figure out how I was going to get back to where I was, and then I was like, well, since I'm already over here, I might as well, you know, grab some more ammo or whatever. But yeah, so but usually it's the other way around. Usually the superior officer is a jerk and has a very skewed view. He's very cavalier about certain things, and it's the younger officer. You're going, okay, I don't agree with him being part of the Empire, but he's right. Those two soldiers didn't deserve to die, and yeah, as much as I don't like it because I'm rooting for the good guys, I'm rooting for Andor. You know, he should be brought to justice. Like that was excessive. Like if Andor just gotten drunk and just blasted two officers, then I'd be rooting for the Imperial to a degree. I'm saying, well, at least he's justified. At least he may have a moral code or a moral compass that is facing the right direction, even if he's aligned with a bigger picture, morally corrupt. Because, you know, sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees. You may be a part of a company or a government or, you know, working for someone or some entity where if you could see on a big scale, like if you could look down and see what the impact of that business or that government was doing, you'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm a part of this. But sometimes when you're just there and all you have is your little bureau, your own little building, your own little job, and there's nothing immoral about what you're doing. There's no quandary, there's no issue. You're not thinking I'm a part of something. I'm not an integral part, but I am a significant part of a machine that is destroying people's lives. So I think a lot of people can be a part of something and not really know it. But he makes it pretty clear. He's like, authority must not be questioned. And, you know, the people should not, our grasp should never loosen or should never be. It's like, okay, no, you're one of those guys. You're a power hungry, power crazed, you know, our way or the highway, and you deserve to be imprisoned for your life or killed for the rest of your life or killed if you dare, you know, have your own opinion or way of thinking about things. So, so it's kind of hard because I'm not. And boy, we almost got crushed there. That was almost a death, I'm pretty sure. Turn the button on. It's left. There you go, buddy. Sometimes even when I'm playing and not having to talk, I don't have it all together. I'm like, up we go. Why not going up? Because you got to turn the power on, you doofus. Or, you know, activate the lever. All right, so based on the time that I know this ends, I believe we are successful on our second attempt. We're 2 for 2, I think, going for the X. Either that or I miss it and we get it at the start of the next video. I'm not sure. But this is how it will culminate. Either the sweet victory of landing on X marks the spot before we go attack the Leviathan, or the bitter defeats of missing the mark. And nope, don't want to go off there. Yeah, no, that's desert. That's not what we want. Could not remember where the heck the X was. That guy's over there? Over there? I don't know. Gotta find the X. Gotta find the X. It's fairly certain it wasn't there, but kind of seemed like I'd looked everywhere that I expected it to be. There it is. Alright, and... Oh, no! Oh, just made it. Just made it. I mean, really, we got that little where it kind of narrows.
Blasted treasure. It got my entire crew killed. But if you want to die looking for it, have fun. This is Captain Blade, signing off for good.
Thanks, Captain Blade. So, yeah, part of this wasn't quite as piratey as it could have been. I mean, they could have given him the hat, you know, the patch over the eye, something piratey, and made it a little less subversive, where it's like he was actually kind of a good dude. But, yeah, there we go. So, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.